Welcome back to the Notes in the Garden podcast. I am Jeff Spickard, the president of Musikgarten. In our last episode, Amy, Ellen, and I discussed the important role of the parent to create a safe environment for a child to thrive in a musical setting. In this episode, we continue our discussion focusing on the other adult in the room, the teacher, to see how their purposeful teaching creates an environment so that music can meet the needs of a child. So let's move to the other adult in the room here, which is really you two. This is your specialty because, hey, you're the teacher, you know. And it really kind of lends to that the Montessori quote that you had me read there, Amy. So first of all, having the proper attitude for your class, you know. Let's talk about listening. For the teacher, what does that entail?
Reading through the entire email. But truly, listening to the end of what the parent is saying, or listening to the end of what the child is saying. They need time sometimes to express it. And it's not just listening verbally, it's listening to the nonverbal too. That child that's hiding behind the parent is definitely telling us something. Or the child that is suddenly, they've been active for a whole class and suddenly they're, doing this, that they're done. They've had enough. And that it might be a wise idea to begin to bring in a lullaby or do something that is more hand-centered rather than another big up flying around the room experience. So that listening is so key to how the class is going to be paced. It's going to be key to what activity I may choose to do next. And it respects that child's energy level as well as their immediate needs right at that moment. So yeah, listening is essential. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that that's a great attitude of listening, not just the verbal, but the nonverbal. What clues are you getting from the child or from the parent? I think that also, because of the online, it has been an interesting time to connect with there are a couple of parents who love to hang on at the end of class and just have a little bit of time where they can talk to you as an adult. And so there's that aspect of listening. So yeah, I think you touched on all of it, watching for clues, listening for clues. Being a good listener is a modeling thing that you're doing for them too, that you can stop and take in what they're saying because you want them to stop and take in what you're saying. And also how we respect completely the listening area of class and how that is set up with ceremony every single time to remind them of the listening time so that that's an active, purposeful, focused listening time of the class. So listening sort of bleeds into the other areas, but as the teacher, you're setting all of that up.
Yeah, now be that as it may, at the same time, we're teaching children how to wait on listening, because many times we'll be singing, and I can think of one child who will shout my name, Ellen, 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 and I'm singing, and I will sing to the end of the song, and then I will say, Finn, you had something special to tell me. Now's the time to tell me. Do you remember what it was? Because we know they're having, the memory, they may not remember it. It doesn't really matter. They might make up something else. But learning to wait for the whole song to end is part of a listening.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you're doing all that in a very respectful way. The way you just described it was extremely respectful to the child, that they're an individual who has feelings. They want to be heard. I think a lot of times, I can only speak from the parent side. From the parent, I probably fail at that a little bit with my kids, And seeing a teacher model that respectful attitude toward a child actually helps me tremendously as a parent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, you're modeling for the parent.
Mhm.
That's so great.
There was a skill when we once learned when a child would interrupt, and it was the, this, and the child, my children knew that this meant that I heard them, and that they would be first for the next moment. And if I ignored it, my children would literally take my finger and put it in front of my eyes like, I am next, mom. And you'll hear parents will have these long conversations with other parents, and the child is there trying to get a word in.
Yeah.
And there's like, don't interrupt. And this says, yes, I heard you, and I'm going to get to the end of my sentence, and then I'm going to interrupt to make sure that you're given a space. And I do that a lot in class too. When one child is speaking and another child interrupts, I'll literally, as I'm looking, I'll be like this. In other words, you're next. And my focus is on that child. Now, online, it's a little harder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can't do this. So sometimes a child will be talking and I'll say quickly, Finn, you're next, and continue. So I have to actually interrupt just so that I let him know that I heard him, but he has to wait.
Yes.
So there's that trying to deal with the respectful hierarchy.
Right. Kind of you're trying to honor all of the children and let them know that they're going to have their turn. And I think that too, it's important with online, when they get to the music makers level, there's a lot of time at the beginning of class where they had something they wanted to share. Think back to when we were all doing this in person, and they'd come to class and there was always something they wanted to say. So we would always let everybody have a turn, talking about something that they wanted to tell us. And we tried to keep it to one. Sometimes it went to two things per person. But we went around the room, and I think for me teaching online, it's been really easy for me to just, they're all there and I just want to start. I see a boy and I just want to sing the song and let's get going. And I realize I need to give them time to talk. And the funny thing about that is I'm ready to listen, but I often hear the parent off to the side saying, shh, shh, don't, it's time for class. Shh, stop talking, stop talking. So they're telling them to stop. So we have to find that balance, and I have to allow the parent to understand that it's okay. I want them to have that time to tell me something about their day, so then they're ready to listen to what I want them to do. So again, it's a little bit of modeling for the parents, a little bit of reminders, and a lot of listening.
Yep, I agree.
So with children, when you're explaining things, what's the importance of really speaking clearly to them? No matter what the age group that you're dealing with. I'm thinking about a lot of times people say that baby talk is not the correct way to talk to a child, even when you're talking to a baby. Obviously you're gonna echo coos and things like that. So speaking clearly in full sentences, what is that modeling aspect reinforcing?
So much vocabulary development, right? It's simply modeling where we want them to be soon, not right then. So for a baby, I speak in complete sentences to the baby. May I pick you up now? Or it's time to go up into the air. Would you like to go up with me? Those full sentences are going to affect the brain differently from just, in a baby way. It just doesn't go to the same place. It includes respect, and it includes vocabulary development. It gives them a chance also to get ready to be picked up when you use a complete sentence. And of course, they're hearing all these wonderful words. I think of George's lesson with responsibility. That word is just so wonderful. And there's so much we can talk about that word. And it comes back, what, 3 weeks of responsibility. And I will hear a child inevitably say somewhere in that story that word back to me.
Yeah.
Because it's such a wonderful word.
Yeah, it pulls them up. You're right. I mean, it gives them something to which they can attain. And I think that online has, I think, really helped me communicate in a more clear fashion. I feel like I'm trying to choose my words really carefully because, again, back to Montessori's quote there, what do we want the focus to be? So how can I use concise, clear language that tells them what is happening next, or what we are doing, or what we're listening to? And since they're so online, they're over it with this online, I think the fewer words we use, the better, because we just become this talking head, and I think we're going to lose them. So, and that's true in person too. I think that the beauty of this is giving me the experience of thinking more concisely about my words and how I use my words. And I completely agree about, we don't talk baby talk, we talk in full sentences. And, that, I think that again, we're giving them something that pulls them up. We're giving them language that pulls them up. There's always something for them to learn. And then of course you have the silly words that we get to say, like, idledom. We're going to say some silly things, and then that gives them an opportunity to try something that's completely different and completely silly, and that becomes a moment that they can latch onto and something they can sing back to you. So yeah, respectfully, speaking clearly, concise words, not a lot of instruction, do the activity more than you talk about it. And we can still do the thing where you do something seated before you get up and do it with your whole body. And every time I talk, honestly, well, not every time, but I have to say I do try to channel Lorna whenever I can, because when I think about how she was with the parents, and I often find myself saying things like in the babies class, I'll say things that I never say in a normal day. I will say, and now I'll invite you to come back to the floor. And I find myself saying this, but it creates this calm. I've talked to the parents, the baby's here, and we've invited them to the floor, and suddenly we're on the floor and we're into the next activity. But I try as much as I can to hear how she was when I would hear her and watch her teach in a class, and try to model that as well.
Yeah, it's very, I guess the language I would say is very generous, kind of attitude toward the child and to the parent in the room. You think about, wow, this is a high responsibility for a teacher. It's a high responsibility for a parent to model all these safe aspects that we're talking about, but this is a very high responsibility for a teacher, that you're modeling these things clearly. Think about modeling courtesy, or the way you handle instruments in the classroom. What a couple things there, like, obviously you have your rituals and your ceremonies, and when we can talk about in person, think about when you're teaching in person, think about when you're teaching online. You bring out the baskets. What are some of the things you talk about with the children when you're doing this?
When I think of taking out a basket, I'm always thinking out loud, I bet sticks would be perfect. I have sticks. I would like to share them with you. And then I'll take out my sticks carefully. I've got 2 sticks. So I will model the whole thing. And then I'll say, it's your turn. Boom. And I'm always amazed at how the children will do that same motion. Now this is 2.5 through 4. But if I am careful on how I do it, I know that when I reach the piano and I ask for this, they already have that ability to follow what I want them to do. So
That's
that,
a good point. Yeah.
yeah.
They've been mapping you all this time. They've been mapping and mapping and mapping, and so they're going to continue to emulate. They want to try to imitate. That's a really good point. And they do the same thing with like how they'll map you on everything, playing drums and however you move your hands, that's what they're going to do. So it's a really good point that you're modeling their, you think about mapping because you're setting up maybe something that you're doing, an actual action, like playing the sticks. You want them to do it this way, you want them to do it this way, or you want to sway, and you want them to, but you're right that the ritual of getting the basket, bringing it to the center, you've already shown them with your movements what you want from them. And as a toddler, that's harder for them to control, but they're taking it in. They may not be able to control their bodies like you do, but they're getting that idea. And the more you do it over time, as they're coming into 3 and then they're moving into 4, they can absolutely do exactly what you're setting up for them to do. And it is amazing what a toddler will do. If you ask them, I always say, I'm like you, Ellen, and I take it out very ceremoniously, and I'll put the basket down and I'll say, carefully and slowly, please take out 2 sticks for you, and 2 sticks for your grown-up. And it's sort of just a moment. And they do take turns, and they wait for each other, and they help each other. Like, oh, I think you're missing a stick. It's just a beautiful time, and just contrast that with, the other option of just tossing a basket in the middle of the room and saying, okay, it's stick time.
Yes.
I do believe that takes place somewhere, but just not
Well,
here.
yeah. And there are times when that might even be appropriate, like when there's a certain flow going on, but that'd be older kids, like 5s or 6s. It's like, we've done this activity and I don't have to say a thing. I take it out and I go, oh yeah, and then it's like, hold on.
Yeah. Slow down.
You remember how we take sticks?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then, Abby, show everyone how you think I would like you to take sticks.
Right. Well, and it's like, with the older students, and you're talking about, you've got the blank piece of paper and the crayon and however many things they're going to need for that next writing activity. And so I set them up in stations. I had a whole presentation on this at a festival years ago, but I have the paper, I have the crayons, which are all brown and black, and
Yes. No yellows,
and maybe a really dark green, and then they had to have mats to write on. And so I would model, and we would take time at the beginning of class, and everybody's in a circle, and I would just say, all of a sudden I would say, I'm going to do something, and I wonder if you can watch me. And I don't say anything, and I get up, and I do all these things. I carefully pick up the piece of paper, and I carefully pick up the crayon. I'm very purposefully picking up the mat. I'm going back to my place all the way, and they're silent. They're just watching my every move. It's the craziest thing. And I put my mat down, and I put my paper on top of my mat, and I put the crayon at the top of my mat on the floor. I'm a crisscross applesauce. I fold my hands and I put them in my lap. And I look around the room and I say, I wonder who else could do that. Of course, you get all the hands. And then you call on the person who's the most reliable and that you know to do it that way. And I say, well, let's watch Nora go get her things. And everybody watches. She goes through the whole thing. She brings it back. She sets it down. But once you've established this, it's like what you were saying, Ellen, then you can kind of move more quickly the next time, a little bit more quickly the next time, and a little more quickly the next time, because you've instilled in them those habits that have now, that tradition has built in some habits, and those good habits turn into good character. I mean, it's just it all builds, and it just continues to build, and it just gets better and better.
Until they reach, well, for me being a piano teacher, it reaches to the ritual of approaching a piano with their hands on their lap. And then, we spoke a lot in the Musikgarten class the other day of the use of the wrist. And yeah, we used a lot of the songs. I've been using a lot of songs to do this motion.
Mhm.
And then we've been doing it on the drum, and when we're done with the drum, putting our hands in our lap. So getting that sense of beginning and end,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's through modeling, and it's doing it in a very respectful way, that knowing that they can do this too. And then the expectation is that they will come back with that same sense of respectfulness towards the instruments.
Yeah, that respectfulness is such a key, and we're giving the parents, we're really giving them such a gift because we're modeling that, just the like you said, the courtesy, the saying please, saying thank you, all of those things. I had my class yesterday was finishing in World. We were finishing the African American unit, and we're getting, we're all done, so we're having a little celebration. And at the beginning of class, I said, I had already told them to be prepared for this, but please tell me what activities you would like to do today to celebrate the end of our unit. And I said, and please ask me if we could do this. May we do this? May we do ping pong samba? Or please can we do Mr. Banjo? And I'll say, yes, we can. Thank you for your suggestion. Let's do that. And I started a list, and it was this really nice exchange, and we came up with this really nice list, and it was just a wonderful, delightful class. So all of those things, and I have a lot of students at the end when I hear parents say thank you to Miss Amy, and they're ending it, even though it's online, they're ending it with thank you, and I always thank them. Every class I end by saying thank you for coming to make music with me today. That's how I end every class. So it's beautiful. I love it. Not my class in general, I just mean Musikgarten itself is beautiful.
It seems like children they want to learn these very precise movements and gestures that adults are doing. And one thing Lorna always talks about, and even when I was talking to her on the phone the other day, when she's talking about, because she's training a lot of teachers in Head Start programs in Germany, and this consistently doing the same movements every time you do an activity, every time you invite a child to do something or a parent to do something, and being consistent about it every time, so that they learn this model that is I can't think of the word now, good grief. It just reinforces and emphasizes the correct way to do it, this respectful way of doing it. You respectfully hold these instruments, you respectfully hold these sticks, you respectfully engage with another individual, you respectfully do this, and you're modeling it to the child, but you're also modeling it to the parent that's in the room.
Yeah.
So
Very much so. One thing I always say to parents, by the way, especially online, is I want you to get into a ritual before class. And part of the ritual is going through the room and having a basket to pick up all the toys to put into the basket. And then that's put away, so that the child is part of getting ready for that music class. And
That's so smart. I love that.
just a simple little thing. And yeah, not every week it happens. And when it doesn't happen, I can shoot a quick email. Let's remember that ritual. Not, you didn't do it this week, look at them. Hey, some parents, they're lucky that they turned it on and the place looks like a catastrophe. And I get it. Know where they are, and so I'm not going to say anything, but I am going to bring it up in a general way, that just take that 15 minutes beforehand to get yourself ready, because if you're ready, the child's going to be, that's transition. You need transition time too.
Yes.
Is really what I'm saying. And I keep reminding the parents, the children, if they're ornery, there's 3 reasons, right? Not enough food, not enough sleep, not enough transition time. Got to have that transition. And parents, you need those 3 things too. And so that's the hardest one. You can't walk in 1 minute before class.
Yeah.
It's going to be a catastrophe.
Right.
You need to think of it as a longer class.
when you were talking about that, preparing the environment and picking up toys, it made me realize too that when we have online, when we're in somebody else's environment and we don't have control of what that environment looks like. I remember, I'm pretty sure it was Karen McIver taught in one of her workshops years ago, saying that to take the class the first day in this new environment that has all these things in it that maybe you would prefer not there, and take a tour, take them on a tour of the class, of the room, and say, look here, over here is a piano, they use that on Wednesdays, you know.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
you have a stack of chairs, and just identify what's in the room and what is not a part of your class, you know, but just giving them a sense that, yes, I understand that all of that is there, and we're going to come over here and make our class right in this part of the room. And there's probably even more and better ways to say that, but something to think about. Identify the things. If you're not in control of your space, you can help make that still a safe and planned environment.
I like that idea of letting the parent almost, they're inviting you into their home, not just this little square box, but you know,
true.
I would appreciate seeing the space that I'm working with. You know, where's the window? Where's the door? Does that door go out to a bathroom? Does it go out? If that child's running in that direction, are they running to a safe place or are they running to an unsafe place?
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of that, but I think that's a nice idea for the future.
Yeah. Take a little tour.
Yeah, the tour is a
You know, as
great.
the kids get older too, they start showing you things. Well, like when I move, and they're like adjusting the camera for you. Like, I'm going to get up and do movements, so they'll come up and flip the camera. But sometimes they'll show you things like, oh, but that's over here, and you know, they like to show you. So yeah, maybe that is a way to incorporate that in the
Oh
online.
my goodness, flipping the camera. I hadn't even thought of that. That solved a problem for one child. She always has to move the camera. She just has to flip the camera. Oh, gosh.
Well, it depends on the camera, right?
Well, it's usually this one child has a cell phone.
It's a phone. Yeah.
Yeah,
In that case,
and
yes.
and then I get as we go, because I've gotten to a point where I don't know, when I'm teaching now, it changes, of course, but when I'm at my pianos, it's a piano space, and I'm trying to make them to do more movement. One of the hardest things in the keyboard is they tend to just sit.
Yes.
And it's always tempting to go, well, why don't we just do the program right here, you know? And I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I actually make a big point of saying it's time to set up your bigger space, and I will slowly move my camera because I've got a big screen, and then they see the familiar space, and then I'm there, and then we proceed. So I make sure there's a ritual of the movement back and forth, but for some of them it's not as happy a change.
Have you seen some of those memes? They're like in piano teaching forums. They'll show, here's how one parent solved the camera angle, and they've got like a cooler with a chair turned upside down, and then another chair turned upside down, and then there's something on top, and they've got the cameras at the very top, but it's like the perfect angle for
Right.
the piano and their movement space or whatever. Yeah, they got to get creative.
Yeah, I've got to push some of those creative things, and you know, it used to be so easy. You opened your door and they walked in. Not anymore. It's like you gotta deal with this camera perspective.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah, so you're even on camera, you're keeping as a teacher, you're keeping your environment clean, organized. You have like right now you each have, like Amy, I think you have a basket of instruments that you use for your classes. You have a certain space that you do the classes in.
Yes.
That you try to be consistent about that.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Just like if you were teaching in person, you would your classroom would be set up a certain way. It would be highly organized. You wouldn't have a lot of stuff that kids could just grab onto, you know.
Right.
You would introduce things at certain times, you know. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if if there was one thing, okay, this is not scripted, so here we go. So as a teacher, if there was one aspect that you were going to put over any other as a teacher, for you, what would it be? Positive aspect, that is.
From us, like, you mean an aspect of teaching, or an aspect of environment, or
an aspect of teaching? Yeah. I mean, as in making the child feel like they're in a safe space.
The word that popped in is planning.
Planning.
You're planning not only, as you said, what's next, because that's part of it, but you're also planning what you're going to say. You're planning how you're approaching the child.
Mm-hmm.
Planning is the word that popped up for me. What word popped up for you?
Well, when you said that a word popped up, I tried to see if a word would pop up. So thanks for that idea. Because I was thinking, there's so much to think about.
Yeah.
And as we were talking, I thought, I don't know if genuine is a good word, but if I'm sort of authentic in my speech and my love for the children and my true passion for teaching Musikgarten, if all of that is genuine, and I know the curriculum's there, so that's a given. And if I can bring it to them in a genuine way, I think that will help create that safe and nurturing and environment for growth.
Got it. Those are
Humor,
both good.
just off the top of
Yeah,
my head.
they're both good. Planning, genuine humor, especially in these times. And I don't mean silly humor. I just mean that it's okay if things fall apart. You know, it's yeah. This is they came to really to share in music, but there's an element of fun in music. It's playing, and it's got to be fun. And
I had a teacher watch one of my family music days once, and she said it was happy chaos. Sometimes, I think we forget what it's like in person, at least I do. But I know there's a lot more, there's a lot going on, but you're right. I think having that attitude of just joy, you know what? It's like when you teach cycles, you've got that outline in your head. You don't know you're not sure exactly how that's going to follow or what shape that story is going to take, or you're going to roll with that and keep it open and playful and joyful.
You're going to be respectfully graceful. How about that? Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
People are probably listening to us and thinking, how in the world does, this talking about parent, talking about teacher, in a music classroom, how does it hit our main goal, which is, music meets the needs of children? And to me, to sum it up is you have parents who are willing to engage, willing to let go of themselves and be a role model for their child within this music space to make them feel safe. And it gives it validity to the music activity that they're doing. And then for the teacher, they're listening in a respectful manner. They're always modeling something to the child and to the parent of being graceful, loving, and adding validity to the activities that they're doing, not only to the child, but also to the parent. It seems like a very high responsibility for both the parent and the child to me.
That's a good summary.
That says it all.
Says it all? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to the Notes in the Garden podcast. Amy, Ellen, thank you again for taking the time and sharing your expertise. I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thanks.
Thank you.